All right, welcome to the Key to Keywords with Anne Hagan. I'm Sheena, and I'm joined today by the fantastic Anne Hagan, author extraordinaire and keyword genius, and she's going to take us through some awesome things about Amazon keywords, why they're important, how to use them, and how to generally be a keyword rockstar. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the basic. What are Amazon keywords, and why are they important for authors?
There are two basic pieces, Sheena, to what they are. Keywords are the words and phrases readers type into Amazon, into their search bar to find a product, like a book. Second, at the simplest level, they're the words and phrases a product seller, like an author or a publisher, uses to describe what they wish to sell. It goes much deeper than that. They're important from the product provider perspective, the publisher or the author, because without them, the only things Amazon has to go on to show you your item to a prospective buyer is the title that you give it, the product description that you provide for it, the category or the categories that you place the book in. For booksellers, that can work very well for nonfiction because a nonfiction writer's title and their subtitle pretty often carry a lot of keywords right within those. It gives them a lot of weight for nonfiction. And their description is typically keyword loaded. It doesn't work quite the same for fiction writers, if it works at all, because our titles typically only allude to what the content of the book is, and the description is often very cryptic because you don't want to give the story away. It's just a teaser for the story. So, we have to use keywords to kind of drive readers to our books because the description and the title aren't going to do that for them alone.
So let's stop for a minute and look at an example. So nonfiction, say we were writing a book about this podcast. We'd call it How to Use Keywords to Sell Your Book, for example. And that in itself is great keyword,
right,
for anybody looking for that topic. But if you were selling your book, we're selling the First in the Morelville mysteries, and that I'm not going to necessarily search for that if I'm looking for a great mystery.
Correct. Yeah, you're going to search for mysteries by lesbian authors, or lesbian mysteries, or bisexual mysteries, or what have you. You're going to put in a search string that's related to what specifically you're looking for. Or you may even use an author name or part of a title if you know it, but you're not going to find my book by, its title and its description aren't going to have keywords in it.
Absolutely. So this is why it's so important for keywords, especially for fiction authors. Here's a question though. You mentioned that keywords are built into the titles and subtitles and product descriptions often. So does that mean we don't necessarily want to overlap the titles, the product descriptions, and the keywords? Does that mean we need to have different things in all of those sectors?
It doesn't help a fiction author really to have keywords in any of those things. For a nonfiction author, you don't want to use the same keywords over and over in your title, your subtitle, your description, your categories. It's because it's redundant. We'll get into it deeper as we get into keywords, but basically you don't want to use the same ones over and over again because you're wasting space. You want readers to find you as many ways as possible. So you need to use as many keywords as possible, and having everything the same doesn't help you.
So it's not like Google where if you tell Google that this article is about XYZ, you have to tell it 3 or 4 times that it's about XYZ. You have to do it in a heading. You have to make sure it's in your main text. So Amazon does not work like Google in that regard.
Not at all. Not at all. It's completely different. Yes, I get what you're saying now. No. Google looks for relevance, and they find relevance by repetition. And they don't want too much repetition because that's spam, but they want to make sure when they're presenting an article to someone that the keywords within that have a certain what they call density. And that means that that article is relevant to what that searcher is looking for. Amazon works completely differently. They're trying to present as many options to a reader as possible. And if you're repeating the same thing over and over again, that's not necessarily what that reader's looking for if they don't type those exact words in. So they might not find you as relevant.
Amazon's also not necessarily as smart as Google in the algorithm to equate one phrase with another.
Correct.
All right, so how do you find the right keywords for your book then? This is the mission I think most people struggle with.
This is the loaded question. There are multiple ways you could do this, and there are multiple factors that play into that. First of all, there are your categories. When you load up a book to Amazon or really to any retailer, you typically get to pick two categories. They should be the ones that best fit your book, but there are reasons you might choose different ones. And we'll get into that in a little bit. First, if your book is a lesbian romance story or a novel, it's a no-brainer to choose that as one of your categories because romances are the hottest sellers in women-loving women fiction. If you're writing something like shapeshifter crime with queer characters, LGBT category choices might not be the best fit, might severely limit your audience. There's a whole world of sci-fi and fantasy categories out there that may be a far better fit with readers that are far more used to and familiar with queer characters. Second, some categories have less competition than others, so it's conceivably easier to get a book ranked in the top 100, where it has more visibility to readers, especially on Amazon, in such a category. And I'll give you an example. I recently published a legal thriller. There's a broad overall legal thriller category. You can list a book there and not go any further, but if you did that, you'd be competing against every single legal thriller on Amazon from a category level perspective. Your keywords would have to be spot on if you want your books to ever even be seen by readers. And you know, that's my first one. Yes, I have a lot of books, but it's the first one, so it's not going to do very well in that broad overall category. Let's say, though, that your legal thriller has a specific theme. Vigilante justice is kind of a hot trending topic right now. Financial crimes, that sort of things. These are what Amazon calls deep subcategories. Some of the other retailers have categories like that as well. There's far less competition for books when you get in categories down deep, down below those main header categories, their parent categories. That's an overview of how categories work for you. When a reader searches, obviously they're going to be drawn into specific categories of books, and so you really need to make sure before you even get to keywords that you categorize your book in the best places for it to be found. Before we talk about how to find keywords, we need to talk about what Amazon gives us to work with and how Amazon uses what they give us to work with. When you list a book via Kindle Direct Publishing, Amazon gives you 7 boxes for your keywords. There are a lot of people that think these boxes are for one word or one string of words, and that's very limited. What a lot of authors don't know, what some publishers don't realize, that those 7 boxes hold 50 characters, including spaces. You should try and use all of them, all 50, every space. Think of Amazon like a search engine, not like a retailer in this case. When it comes to presenting products to a potential buyer, it's like we were talking before, all about relevance. Its search engine uses an algorithm Amazon has named A9 in its current version. The algorithm parses those blocks looking for words and strings of words that readers will type into the search bar. Now, A9 gives more weight to exact match strings like lesbian wolf shapeshifter, for example, if you've got all of that in one box. But those 3 words can actually appear anywhere among the 7 boxes, and Amazon's search engine will find them. So the first thing we need to think about is fitting as many different terms in there as possible to describe our books and to try not to repeat any words, if at all possible. If you put in the keyword, for example, say women's sleuths, I write mysteries, so that's a term I would use. You should also include detectives, but it's a waste to say women's sleuths and then say women detectives when you've already used the word women once. You're taking up valuable real estate that you could use to get yet another keyword in. I'd add here, Amazon offers a basic tutorial on using keywords along with some helpful do's and don'ts. There's a long URL that I can give you that you can give to your listeners.
Yeah, we'll stick it in the show notes.
Pay special attention to the do's and to the don'ts to keep yourself in good standing with Amazon specifically. Other retailers, they basically will let you put in 10 to 20 keywords or keyword phrases, and those phrases can be any length, but they don't have quite as much flexibility as Amazon. They're more traditional search, like Google would be search. I found that 10 is about the average with most of the other retailers. So, but that can be a long string. But understand that they're going to parse kind of like Google parses. It's going to be exact. So with them, you want to find the best keyword phrases to use.
So you've got your 7 boxes. So say in box 1 you put woman sleuths. Do you also put detective in that first box, or do you put that in the second box?
Right. You can put up to 50 characters in a box. So you want to put as many in that first box as you can, but be mindful, and we'll talk about how you find keywords as we go on. Be mindful of the phrases that you find that are high-performing phrases, things that readers type in a lot, and try and keep those phrases together. But, women's sleuths, yes, but then detectives, and then you might have bisexual, then you might have shapeshifter, and that might all fit in one box because you get 50 characters, including spaces. And Amazon does not require you to separate things with commas. The space is all that's required. And it will parse out of all of that. It will pick and choose out of all of that, out of all 7 boxes. So in reality, you have 350 characters. Don't even think of it as 7 boxes anymore. It's 350 characters to get your words into.
If you find that people are typing in both women detectives and woman sleuths, is it worth putting woman in twice because you get the correct phrasing, or is it not worth the wasted space?
It's typically not worth the wasted space if you have a lot of words that you can get in. And as we get into talking about how you find words, you'll see how many words you can potentially come up with that, if you do this right, you hit your 350 characters, not repeating any words.
That's kind of amazing. And I imagine you get found much better then because you have much better search phrases.
Correct.
Where do we find keywords then? How do we find keywords? This is, I imagine, quite the task.
Okay. Well, the basic start of all of this is, what's your book about? What are the themes of the book? What's the setting? Do any holidays play into your story? Start making a list of all of the things that a book is about, and think of those things as potential keywords. Then go to Amazon, pull up the Kindle store, specifically Kindle ebooks. It's always better to search under Kindle because there's a lot more Kindle books than there are paperback books. And you would switch your search bar to Kindle store, leave the search bar blank, and hit search. In the left-hand column on Amazon's homepage, choose Kindle ebooks. And then, I typically choose the LGBT category, and then I'll drill down to romance or mystery in that same left-hand column. You'll start to notice in that left-hand column on the Amazon homepage that your choices get more specific as you drill down. You'll see things like characters, settings, those sorts of things. And then specific terms under those headings. If you use those terms that show up in the left-hand column when you've drilled down into like romance or mystery, those are keywords that actually lead into categories for Amazon. And if you use those specific words phrased exactly as they phrased them, your books will show up in searches when readers search, when they click those things. You know, they go down through and they click mystery, and then they click women's sleuths and all that. You've used women's sleuths as a key word. You've basically found a category that you can't necessarily get to, you know, when you're choosing your two categories. So you're in yet another category. Categories have more weight than simple search terms and keywords. But like I said, they can't all be reached just by picking categories. There are other categories on Amazon that you can't get into except by using keywords. And some of the LGBT categories are that way. For example, you can't get into a category just by choosing from your two main categories a book and list it as bisexual unless you use bisexual as a keyword.
Can't you ask Amazon to put you in there, though?
You can, because Amazon will put you in up to 10, but that requires you to find the string, email Amazon, tell them this is the string, this is my book, I want it in this category, wait for them to respond and all that. Where if in your 7 keywords, your 350 characters, you put the word bisexual, you're in the category. And readers are searching for books about bisexual characters. So there's a page on Amazon, and we can put that in the show notes as well, that gives you these keywords for these hidden categories. Transgender books and all that also have specific keywords Amazon wants you to use to get books into that category that aren't available right from the drill down list when you're choosing your categories.
You're listening to The Lesbian Talk Show. TheLesbianTalkShow.com, your hub of podcast information.
Now, if we go backwards, that list that you made with keywords about your book, once you've gone in and you've looked down that left-hand column and picked out some other things that are categories that are only reachable by using those keywords and that sort of thing, then you want to take your list of keywords you made that are specific about your book and start typing those things into the Amazon search bar. See what Amazon offers you with autocomplete, what phrases it gives you. There are phrases that readers type in to find books potentially like yours that will pop up with the most commonly typed one first. Here's the drawback to that, though. You know, most authors are readers, and so we're on Amazon all the time, typing stuff in. We're looking at our competition all the time, typing stuff in and all that. Well, Amazon remembers everything about you. They know everything about everything that you've ever searched for. If you're using a browser like Chrome or Firefox or Safari, go into incognito mode when you start looking for keywords. So it takes out your search history and just uses what the average reader is looking for. The most common phrases for the average reader, not for you as an author, you as a reader. It'll keep them from showing you your own search history.
That is a great tip.
Another tip is, as you're going in and you're doing this, let's say, your first keyword is lesbian. Type lesbian space A. See what it gives you. Lesbian space B. See what it gives you. The top thing that comes up may be something that's very relevant to your book. But do this with every keyword that you thought of with your book and just see what else Amazon comes up with that readers are actually searching for, and anything that's relevant, write it down to potentially use in your 7 keywords.
That's intense work. You're going to spend like 3 days just finding keywords.
Well, there are some tools that actually make it easier. And if you honestly can't fill up 350 characters doing that, or you're not sure about that stuff, that you come up with, you don't know what are the best ones to use, if maybe you've got too much, there are some tools that can help you parse that out and figure out what's best to use, or fill it out if you don't have enough. One of the ones that a lot of authors use is the Google AdWords tool. Google lets people put ads on their website, and they have a tool that tells you how relevant something that you're looking to use would be, how relevant those keywords are, how many searches there are on those on Google in a given month, and so forth. It's not Amazon specific. It's designed to help people find keywords for Google AdWords, but it's free to use. And Google gets a lot more searches than Amazon does every month. So you know that it's going to be a good tool to use to help you try and find some more words. Another tool that's specific to Amazon, to Kindle, but that obviously, translates over to what people would be searching for at the other retailers is Kindle Samurai. Now, it's not very expensive. It's a $40 tool. It's on sale all the time for $20. I think it's like $19.99 for lifetime access. And it works okay to find you additional keywords and to give you an idea of what your competition is for those keywords on Amazon. It's not so much, it doesn't, like I said, it works to find keywords for the other retailers, but it doesn't tell you what your competition looks like for those keywords on the other retailers and all that. But you'll find that if you find the things that work best for you on Amazon, they're going to work great for you at Barnes & Noble for the Nook and for Kobo and for Google Play and so forth. I recommend using it to look up keywords you've already dug up and then prioritize them by how much competition there is out there for them. And then the last one, and one that a lot of authors like I use, is called KDP Rocket. It's the most expensive. It's $99 right now for lifetime access. The person that runs that, Dave Chesson, I think is his name, keeps saying that he's taking it to a subscription model. People that have it now are grandfathered in, but once he takes it to a subscription model, it's going to cost quite a bit more. But what that does is it has functionality that's far beyond finding keywords to fill your boxes. It gets extensive use by people who run Amazon ads for their books. And I do that, and we'll talk about that more. But the sponsored product strings of books that you see that are below books that people who have bought this book also bought, that string of books that appears below a book. Well, then underneath that are sponsored product books. And people use Kindle or KDP Rocket to find keywords to list their books as in those sponsored product ads. And, obviously, if it works for that, it's going to work to help you find your 7 keywords as well. So you got to pay a little bit for it, but you'll know exactly what your competition for those keywords are, and you can then use it for quite a bit of other things as well.
For those of you who have been furiously taking notes, let's just quickly recap. So it's Google AdWords, the keyword tool on Google AdWords. It's Kindle Samurai and KDP Rocket. We'll have links in the show notes.
And there are more than those 3. There are all sorts of companies out there. Those are the 3 best known, most widely used by authors.
And ones that you use.
Correct.
Cool. Okay, so let's look at the big search engine versus Amazon. So let's look at Google versus Amazon in terms of keywords. So without getting too technical about all of this, because there's a lot of programming and things that go into Google keywords, let's give the listeners an overview.
So basically what you're asking is, how does Google differ from Amazon?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Well, we touched on a part of that when we talked about how Amazon parses the 7 search fields. Google doesn't work at all the same way. It looks for exact matches to what you type into their search box. Other than, unlike Amazon, it will automatically look for the plural of a word. It will also tell you, and it thinks you've misspelled something. A lot of us use Google as a spell checker sometimes. And it will show you alternatives to the way that you spelled it. They will not return matches, if Google won't, if it only finds part of your search string, unless nothing at all comes up for what you searched for, which is unlikely on Google, or it doesn't find more than a couple of results. The other thing that's different with Google is you can use search syntax with them if you know it. And if you don't know what we mean by search syntax, you can go into the advanced search function on Google, and it will actually create that syntax for you. And I'll give you, for example, what I'm talking about. If you put a phrase in Google that's commonly combined with another word or words, and you don't want those words included, you put a minus sign in front of the word you don't want, and Google's search algorithm will eliminate that from the results that it returns to you. Amazon doesn't do that. You can't use a negative keyword on Amazon in typical search. And let me give you an example to make it a little bit simpler. Say I want to look up weather for towns named Newcastle. I was born and raised in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I want to see what the weather looks like for all the Newcastles, but I don't want Newcastle, England. Let's say just for today, I don't want to hear anything about England. If you type in new space castle space minus sign England with no space between the minus sign and England, your results will come back with Google for weather for Newcastle, every Newcastle in the world but Newcastle, England. It will just parse that out. It's that smart. Now, we could talk all day about how Google works. The most important thing to understand about it is this. The categories you choose, how your books are presented on Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon, and the better or more descriptive your keywords are in those Amazon search boxes, the better the chance you have of your books showing up in a Google search. And you do want Google to show the world your books, don't you?
Does it though? Not all Amazon books appear on Google, even if you're searching for them.
True. And part of that is a product of not getting your keywords built up. As we talked about before, Google searches for relevance. If you've got one book out and you've basically put one or two words in each of those 7 boxes and all that, it's going to have a hard time finding it. As you build up a body of work, as you get better with keywords and that sort of thing, Google will find you more and more. You know, I have 20 books out. Google doesn't find all of them, but it finds most of them now.
Okay, and so we've learned a lot today about keywords, but let's go through some tips. So what's the most important, most fundamental things to take away from today's episode to get the most from your keywords?
Well, some Amazon do's and don'ts, and of course most of them apply across the spectrum of the other retailers that you're working with. Specific to Amazon, use all 50 spaces in each of the 7 boxes. Okay. Number 2, use exact phrases when you can, but don't repeat words and waste spaces. 3, don't waste spaces using plural versions of words. A9 will find these, or misspelled words. A9 again will find those. 4, use Amazon's keyword advice to get into categories you can't reach by selecting categories. 5, capitalization does not matter, and that's across retailers. You can use all lowercase. 6, there is no need to use words already in your title or subtitle or series name. And I don't think that's something that we actually covered today, but if you've covered it in one of those 3 things, you don't have to put that keyword into your keywords also. 7, on Amazon, don't use any Amazon program names as keywords like Kindle Unlimited, KDP, KDP Select, etc. Your book will be made unavailable for purchase until you correct the issue and take those things out. 8, don't use the names of other authors or the titles of other books, no matter how similar they may be in those 7 boxes. That's misleading for readers. That can get your book taken off the shelf until you correct that. Don't use any punctuation in your 7 Amazon keywords. Separate words with spaces only, and that applies to the other retailers too. Don't use stop words like a, and, of, the, and the like. You're just wasting space using those. Unless it's very specific to a phrase that you want to use, I wouldn't use them. You're wasting space. And don't use subjective claims like best or number 1 or temporary terms like new.
That is a great space to end our first episode, I think. And thank you for joining me today. Where can people find you online, and what book should they be reading of yours today?
Well, the book that I is the book of my heart lately is the one that I recently published, Steel City Confidential. It's a legal thriller that Sheena and a reader kind of let's say, pushed me to write.
Challenged you.
They challenged me to write. And that's the book of my heart. It's probably my favorite book of the books that I've written. It's got that unique backstory and a whole lot more to it. And I'll give you one hint about what it's about and leave it at that. And you can decide if you want to read it or not. What if Thelma and Louise lived? What if they survived when they went over that Grand Canyon cliff? And that's all I'll say.
And it's a fascinating read. I've just started it. So far, I'm really loving the one curmudgeon dude, ex-cop.
Yeah.
Okay, Anne, and where can people find you online?
My website is annehaganauthor.com, and I'm on Facebook, Twitter, you name it, I'm probably there.
You've been listening to Anne Hagan Presents Killing It with Keywords. I'm Sheena, and I was joined today by the fabulous author Anne Hagan. If you enjoyed this podcast and like what we do on the channel, consider becoming a patron. Not only do you help us grow, but you also get fabulous exclusive content. That's all for this week. Bye.